All right, welcome to the show, Chris.
All right, welcome to you, Craig. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good.
All right. You been having a good week?
Yeah, it's been a pretty good week, man.
You having a good day?
It's winding down. Yeah, I'm having a great day.
All right.
Yeah.
I was accusing the audience, I guess, of being a little distracted. I wasn't able to pick your brain there a little bit ago. He's sort of I don't know, sleepy, daydreamy. Where you at?
I don't know what he's talking about, man.
Welcome to another edition of Through a Therapist's Eyes. I am Chris Gazik, your Crave Graves. You can see the world through the lens of a real mental health and substance abuse therapist with the goal to create emotional growth through the medium of this podcast. Being aware it is not the delivery of therapy service in any way. Feedback and discussion on throughatherapisteyes.com and the email contact at throughatherapisteyes. I will get that personally and would love to respond to you. Still looking for some of the people for a direct. I think that was last week that we did, or
I think that was 2 shows ago.
Yeah, it just came out though.
Hopefully those spots are filled by now.
Yeah, we're looking to get some more of those filled and get those things out. Just as a reminder to the audience there. Well, actually, yeah, I guess it's 2 weeks after that, Craig, right? It should be probably done by now, maybe. But anyway, the idea was to email me directly at contact@throughatherapisteyes.com and have a personal conversation with you. I'd like to kind of reach out and get in touch with people across the country that are listening to the show. I think that'd be really fun to get into doing. So if that's not already done, get to that. I'll throw that out there again. So this is the human emotional experience. Let's figure this out together, shall we, sir?
Let's do it.
I texted you probably, 2 hours ago or an hour ago on the show topic. I'm going to catch him cold after he gives us his fun fact on what have you learned about substance abuse or addiction. What is it? Tell us all about it. We've talked about it a few times. I'm curious what your brain will do with that, but tell us something interesting about yourself first.
Oh, something interesting about me first.
Your deepest, darkest secret,
We
man.
talked about this on the finance show, but I am getting ready to start up a new class, the financial peace class. If anybody's local and wants to take that, it's going to be on September the 22nd. I'm not sure when this show will get published. Hopefully, registration is not closed when we go live with this show. But yeah, man, it's going to be at Bethlehem Baptist Church. September 22nd is when we're going to start at 6 p.m. So if anybody's interested, reach out and let me know, and we'll get you in there.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I would love to see you do that. It's an awesome program. We've talked about it on here before. I've taken it with my wife, and it's an awesome thing to get a part in. Even if you feel like you really kind of got your finances together, and really helps you get on the same page, and it's a real down to earth, very effective way at managing money because he handles the emotions of it. It's an awesome thing.
Yeah, it really is. And I was up on stage at the church over the weekend talking about it, and really, man, the topic is money, but overall and above that, it's really a class about hope. Because a lot of people feel hopeless when it comes to finances, and this class educates you and helps you create a plan and implement some strategies that gives people hope when it comes to their finances. So, I mean, I'm excited about doing it, and hopefully, maybe some of our listeners will join us.
Yeah, you got to be the best facilitator ever, man. I'm thinking.
I don't know about that, but
yeah, one of them, top 5 in the country. You got to be.
Well, we'll get the job done. I can guarantee you that.
So that's your fun fact, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so we've got the last preseason of football. It's the 4th week. Doesn't matter because it's a bunch of boring stuff.
Let's hurry up and get the show over with so we can watch the game.
Yeah, you're being sarcastic, aren't you, man? Why you gotta be that way?
That might be my new fun fact. If the NFL shut down tonight and a football game, another football game was never played, I wouldn't lose a second of sleep.
Blasphemy, man! That's blasphemy. You're a male. You're an American. You're a dude. You're cool. You're losing your card, man.
Man, that's
losing your card. Well, we do. We've got football. We've got. Not too far away from your sport, baseball playoffs coming on up, flag chase
that'd
running.
Be cool. I'll sit down and watch the baseball.
Right. We got college. Yeah. We got college football. Go WVU, West Virginia Mountaineers. We're going to be horrible this year, but we're going to try hard. Shouldn't be too long. I mean, this is an awesome time for sports. Because it shouldn't be too long before the NBA starts firing up here in a couple of months, right?
Yeah, that's another one I wouldn't lose sleep over. But
come on now, man. We got to get the bookie ready.
We got to
do fantasy football. Do you not do any of these things?
You need to take the blue pill. You want the blue pill or the red one?
This is important, man, because people are getting ready to gamble.
You're plugged right into that old matrix, aren't you, buddy?
You're getting ready to gamble. We got a whole industry this time of year that is getting ready to explode. The sports gambling industry. The effects with addiction. I think that's what I titled this episode.
You're leading into the topic.
Yeah, made you see how I go there? That was good, right?
I'm with you now.
That was good, right?
I'm
right?
with you now.
Sharpness.
Yeah. Okay.
Pretty stellar, huh?
I'm impressed. I didn't know you had it in you.
So listen, man. We have talked about drugs and alcohol addictions, process addictions, eating, gambling, sex, and online video gaming addictions from the World Health Organization, right? So I just want to start the show out, see how long you can take it, see how long you can run with it. What are you picking up about it? What have you learned from our shows and from our discussions or from what you already knew? And before I do that, that's a warning. So get your brain working, right? Episodes that this is really related to, guys. I've tried it when I do the show prep to coordinate our shows a little bit and see that sometimes. And this is one that we're going to cover. We'll cover different aspects of addiction over the months and years to come because there's so many aspects of it that are so important and so cool. Like, I don't think we've ever talked about family dynamics with addiction, have we? Yeah, I don't think so. No, not at all, man. It's awesome with mental health and substance abuse, man. Content is so easy for me to come up with. There's so many things that are looked at that are important. And they build off each other, right? So episode 8 was what is substance abuse. That was our start, and then episode 25, Jim and Adam Brown. Jim was our guest that was with us. Awesome, dude. Hope you're doing well up there in I want to say where you're at because you moved, but up there in N Nation. I'll just say N Nation. That can mean anything. And then episode 28, we talked about a lot about cannabis, and we did talk about opioids, but I didn't put that on the list. Those are all addictions things, and we've kind of peppered it in through the social media stuff as well. But check those episodes out. You'll get a good handle if you keep with us on alcohol abuse and addiction issues. So take it as long as you can, man, as long as you want. What have you learned? What is it? What is addiction?
I don't know if I can tell you what addiction is. I can tell you the thing that I've learned that surprises me the most is the whole thing about addiction being a what is it? A trait or an inherited trait?
Yeah, genetic.
You have genetic predispositions biological predispositions to being addicted to stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's my biggest takeaway from all the shows, I think. My biggest one, because I thought and I still am not convinced this isn't the case. Otherwise, I mean, were all these guys who were hooked on opioids addicted personalities in the first place?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought or question, if that is a question. I mean, I've actually heard professionals in the substance abuse field, I don't know how I feel about it either, honestly claim that like you could take anyone literally and pop them on opioids for a long enough time and that they would become, habitually, psychologically, and physically addicted to opioids. I really don't know how I feel about that statement.
That's got to be true. I'm going to tell you why. First of all, though, I want to say, if you have not heard any of our shows on addiction, what we're talking about is Chris says that you're genetically predispositioned to addiction. And my thoughts on that before we started this podcast was, anybody had just as equal chance of getting hooked on a drug or one of those other things he's talking about. And he's saying that you're genetically predispositioned for it. And what you just said, I would argue that who said that you could develop an addiction to an opioid?
Just a colleague.
Okay.
Just a colleague.
Remember those statistics that Dr. Phil threw out there?
Yeah, I know. I've heard more than once that sort of notion. And
that leads me to believe that, even if you aren't genetically predispositioned to an opioid addiction, you could become addicted just by taking too much of that crap.
See, it gets thrown around there pretty easily, and I would love to have a conversation with Dr. Phil himself. Hey, Dr. Phil, we'd love to have you on the show, man. Let's chat about it.
Yeah, but I think those were statistics he quoted and not his opinion.
Yeah. Well, I think like you pointed out, it's kind of interesting. look, when we start learning about things, we learn a lot of what we don't know. I think it was the last show that you kind of struck me.
Isn't that what
man.
it means to learn?
Yeah,
out stuff we don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And you struck me the last show, Craig, when we were talking about nutrition. And I'm like, yeah, go see your doctor. You got to see your doctor. You got to do that. It's important. Look at the research, whatever. And you were like, you remember what you said? You're like, yeah, you know what? I don't know that well, first of all, doctors wouldn't know anything about it. And I'm like, well, yeah. And you're like, researchers, look, I question what they're saying because who's funding the research and all that. So it's tough. And we see that a lot in the addictions field too. So, yeah, he did quote
just back up. If you're going to get on the keto diet, go see your doctor. I mean, go talk it over with him first. Yeah. He may not know much about it because it's a fairly new thing. And my understanding is, and if you're an MD listening, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Please do. But, doctors don't get a whole lot of education on nutrition when they're in med school, is my understanding. Do you know much about that?
Say again, doctors get what?
They don't get much education on nutrition in med school.
I have no idea.
Is that a true statement?
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, if we have any doctors listening, you could clear me up. I'll certainly admit that I'm wrong, if that's the case. Which has happened before on occasion.
Never. So what else sticks out to you? I think that's a good thing, Craig, that you say. What are you learning or thinking about addiction?
I thought that cell phones were addictive. I thought that was an addiction, which turns out it's not. And I continued to fight that one pretty hard until Dr. Weigel cleared us up on that. He seemed to be an authority on the topic, and he said that cell phones were not addictive. You did not develop an addiction to social media or cell phones. So that was the thing I learned on here too. I'm not sure I have much to contribute other than those two things, man.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, it's just fascinating to me, to think about, how you hear things, Craig, and part of why I love doing this with you because, how and what you're hearing is so indicative, I think, of the way people generally think about these things. And that's why I really wanted to start it out. Because, truthfully, honestly, when we're talking about sports gambling addiction, it's in the context of addiction all told. And, I know the criterion and I know what I'm looking for diagnosing specifically these things and stuff. But, my head has, I'll be honest, sort of meandered around a little bit on, on the topic from when I first was, up at Chestnut Ridge Hospital in University of WVU's psychiatric behavioral care, when I did my work there. Because, and I actually was impressed by, I heard a lady that I looked up to. She was a seasoned therapist, and she had made that statement. That kind of surprised me, So, the ins and outs and the origination, the etiology of these things.
Made what statement, bro?
Her brains change. Her brains and thoughts change around what addiction is, what it isn't, how it works, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, sorry, thanks for that. And I think that's really true. And so, where we're at as a society, you reflect, I think, really well. Let me tell a story first off of something that I thought was interesting. Understanding gambling addiction specifically is our idea here today. And I thought that was cool because to start out that way because, there are different drugs of choices. And to understand kind of what's going on, you kind of really got to get the day-to-day functioning of somebody. That's what I work really hard in my office to work with somebody. What's every day like for you? How does this work? What are the intricacies? How do we need to manage that? And what do we need to make differently? So,
these are questions you're asking your clients.
Yeah.
Okay.
Working through and looking at and stuff. So this is just to give you an idea of how scary and dangerous gambling can be. I was thinking about it. It's another conference, Craig. One of my first ever, man. I was in grad school. Not my first ever, but one of the very, very first ones going back way from whenever, 1995 or 4 or something like that. And I'll never forget the way this guy described it because we were going to an addiction conference, and it was a series of them. And this guy was up there. He was pretty well established. Had a nice big Vita resume. I was student, so I was helping out everything. I saw this guy. I mean, he was clearly in recovery himself, and I mean, his vita was like, I don't know, 20, 25 pages or something. It was crazy. He'd done a lot of seminars and presentations, and he seemed very knowledgeable is my main point.
Okay.
And what he was talking about is a concept of him going in recovery himself and the dangers that those are in recovery, for all you that are recovering out there, cross addiction. You can fall into serious behavior with other things that aren't your drug of choice, including gambling, sex, and food, right? So he told a story of going to some conference, or he was presenting at somewhere, and he's walking by a strip, where they have slot machines and stuff. And he's like, you know what, man, I'm just gonna check this out. And he was an orator, so he was really good, much better at me at words and telling a story. So I hope I'm doing it justice, because he described a very powerful experience that he had. He was walking down the street by the strip. You ever look at slots machines and look like, you know what is that, And he swears this was a true story. Now, this guy in recovery now, mind you. And he
recovery
knows,
from?
Doesn't matter, alcohol or whatever his drug choice
gambling.
was. Not gambling, right? Doesn't matter, because you can get into trouble with any of the other substances or things. And he knew that. So he was kind of really aware of what he was doing. But he was like, you know what? Look here. All right, so he literally had a nickel. Maybe it was a dime. I don't remember. And walking down, he decided, you know what? I just want to see what people are talking about.
And he took a nickel, he hit a jackpot, and sailed off into the sunset.
Literally.
You're kidding.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, because, I mean, what happened? Look, he put that thing in. He pulls the lever down. And he described his experience of it really, really well. Like I'm trying to do justice now. So he pulls his lever down, and I don't know if you've ever been to slot machines or whatever, Craig. I honestly have never used a slot machine, but he sees this experience go on right in front of him. I mean, the lights start binging, the sounds started whining, and the zinging and the whatever and the zipping of the machine. I mean, he's like, whoa, like what happened? And he just described like his blood pressure, his endorphins just exploded. He was like, wow, like how does that happen? Like, well, I just put a dime and pulled a slot and boom, this stuff happens. And it's like, it scared the crap out of him. Because he knew after he knew like what was going on inside of him. And he felt intoxicated, man. I mean, he felt that feeling. And he knew it well because he's been in recovery. He hadn't felt that endorphin rush for a while.
So he got the same feeling from slot machine.
Absolutely.
As he did from whatever else he'd been doing.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. The rush that was there. And I think I've made the comment slight comment, before on this show, when I'm playing poker, I mean, the first hand that I win, I mean, I'm kind of geeked up about that. I mean, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm taking your money, man. That's awesome. You pull chips in. I mean, that's why people get a rush out of that. It's a big deal. So it's a quick little story to kind of demonstrate, like, you get a rush from all of this, and it is an endorphin kick, just like you would when you're buzzed up on something. Sound crazy? Make sense?
It sounds crazy to me. It does. I cannot relate to that, And when you talk about drug addictions and alcohol addictions and, even sex addictions, I guess, like, I'm not addicted to anything, but those kind of things give you some kind of a feeling. And
experience almost, yeah.
Yeah. But video games, man, and we've talked about this, I think I've said this before. I never was a gamer. Even now, I like to play the old school Galaga arcade game, but as far as some of these new things, I'm just not interested. And you know that.
Yeah.
And the same thing with gambling. I hate to lose my money so bad. And I've only had a couple of experiences with gambling in my life. I think I played
you talked about
parlay
the
card, parlay card where you choose.
Yeah.
I picked a parlay card up one time and won $100.
Yep.
And then I lost the next. That was like the first one I've ever done. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Like you maybe you say and your friend there. Then the next 2 weeks I lost. And I'm like, screw this, man. I'm out.
Right.
I never played again.
Personally, that's my experience too. I think I've told you, like I'm so grateful that I do not seem to demonstrate or have the biological aspects of addiction. I've actually, I think I've said this on the show too before. I've actually tried to sit down at a, on cruises that I've been on, to sit down in the casino and try to have fun with it.
I'm too stressed out about losing my money.
I just can't do it.
Yeah, me too.
If you and me are sitting there with some boys playing poker, which I really want to get you in, we need to do that. I want to sit down.
Yeah.
Because you know what? I'm trying to take your money.
Fun, man.
No, I'm trying to take your money. You're trying to take mine, and it's fun. It is. I enjoy the crap out of it. But when I sit down and you're trying to take my money and I'm trying to take your money and I'm in your house and the odds are in your favor, I just can't do it. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
But there's something with this gambling when somebody gets into this and they have this addiction characteristics that we talked about. That's a whole different ball game, man. So what we're looking for diagnostically, super quick, I'm not going to make this a diagnostic show, but there are some very different and distinctly different things that people start to begin experiencing that we use as criterion to diagnose this stuff, such as feeling the need to be secretive about gambling, secretiveness. I'm hiding this from a loved one or somebody. The big idea is having trouble controlling gambling habits. That is to say, it's unpredictable how much money I will spend or what I will do. A control factor is a big deal. If I go to Las Vegas this next weekend and I'm taking $250 to spend on entertainment and gambling, I can daggone sure you that it's going to be $250-ish, meaning I might drop another 50, or I might not drop that last 50. But I'm not coming out of there $1,500 in the hole. It's not going to happen, period. There's no shot, right?
Yeah.
That's predictability. That's control. You lose control is a big characteristic of addiction. Gambling when you can't afford to do it. You don't have the money for this and you do it anyway. Friends or family express concerns about your gambling. So some other people that love and care about you are like, yo, like, what up? You can't be doing this, right? Those are just some of the things that we look for with any of the characteristics, with any of the different drugs of choice, that we're looking for specific things. With the big factor being, control, what I was saying about that. But, people get really kind of wrapped up about this, Craig, and I thought one of the show notes we have on here is stories. And what I want to do is take a break. You were talking earlier this evening about different ways to support your show. Let's take a break and hit that in here. But then I want to come back and I want to really kind of look at, like, you can understand better, I think, the feeling and flavor of what I'm talking about with people's real stories. I'm so humbled in a therapy office with people sharing their stories with me. It's a big deal. It's a big step. I tell every single person first time. It's
kind of part of the process, though, right?
It is, but their humility and vulnerability to really share a lot of those stories wide open. Some don't 100%. Craig, they tell me only some and whatever. I don't know, but a lot do. And what I'm trying to say is the things people share and their experiences that they have give you more than what I can list to you in a list on symptoms of addiction. It just, I guess what I'm trying to say is having enough experience in this field, talking to enough people, gives you a perspective that I try to share. And in a little way, this website that I found, I thought was cool. It shares some stories, and I don't like reading on the show, but I'm going to read a couple of things because it demonstrates her real experiences that somebody shares. I've had a lot of that.
So with gambling addiction,
yes, in this specific,
that's topic related.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's do that when we come back from the break, and you're gonna tell us. I think you recorded or talked about a way to support the show. Is that right?
Yeah. So Chris and I, if you've listened very long, we've had a couple of sponsors. NetSmart was gracious enough to stick with us for a couple of months. Then we had our friend Matthew Hanks Realty, and then Chris has also talked about the donate button that's on the website. But we've got a new thing now, a new way for you to support the show. We've partnered with a company that creates supplements, health supplements, Whole Family Life products. And I first found Whole Family Life, I guess 3 or 4 years ago. I used to sell health supplements on Amazon. And some of the best-selling products that I had were from this company called Whole Family Products. Now they've got 117 or 116, I believe, offerings now. One of which is CBD, which we've talked about on the show, and they have that in different flavors and in different forms. They've got drops, they've got creams, they've got different milligrams. They've also got a lot of natural hormone type related products. One of my best sellers when I was selling on Amazon was a female product called Menobalance, which helped ladies with symptoms of menopause, and also PMS creams. And those products were good sellers, and they got great reviews. So what we've got set up with Whole Family Products is an affiliateship, or kind of a partnership. So if you buy products from their website using our link, then we will get a commission. So what I'm going to do, it's there's a link on our website. If you go down to the sponsors, it's over on the right-hand side if you're in the browser. And if you're on your phone, you just scroll down until you see sponsors, and there'll be a little image, their little logo on there. And if you click on that, it's going to take you to their website. And then anything you purchase at that point will give, through a Therapist Eyes podcast, a commission or a percentage of that sale. And so go check those guys out. If you're using those kinds of products already, then it would help Chris and I out and help us promote our show. And we've talked about getting video, and it helped us get video equipment. And they've really got a lot of good, high-quality products. And I've spoken to, I've had good conversations with both Brenda and Elizabeth. Brenda is the owner of the company. And Elizabeth always helped me out with my orders. They're great people. They have big hearts to help people, and it shows through in their products. One of the things I failed to mention is they have a sleep supplement, Chris. It's a natural sleep remedy. We've had shows on sleep, and so if you're having trouble sleeping, perhaps that could help you out.
Awesome. No, that's cool. I'm listening to you, and I'm like, wow. I mean that. So they can come on and buy some weed from us.
And I wouldn't say that.
I'm kidding. No, seriously, man. That sounds really cool. I appreciate you describing that. I didn't realize you had mentioned it days ago or a couple weeks ago or whatever, and I thought, wow, okay, that sounds cool. Run with it. And I didn't realize, frankly, it was as cool as it sounds. They can get all kind of supplements and hormone kind of things. And
yeah, there's
CBD.
Lots,
I mean, that's a lot of
good
big deal
stuff there. And I was communicating with Brenda earlier in the week over email. And they've got a lot of CBD offerings now.
Yeah.
And she said that
absolutely
they were going to release 16 new CBD related products.
Wow, that's really cool. I'm gonna put a qualifier on there moving forward, so the audience knows kind of where I'm personally coming from. You may hear us talk about this. I guess we're gonna promote it a little bit and help them out with their thing, and of course we get help from it as well. But I've always never poo-pooed it, but I've never been a big deal on the supplements and nutrition and that type of thing. But I mean, doing the stuff that we're talking about recently, dude, I'm catching up to you just a little bit. You're light years ahead of me, Craig Graves, but I'm catching up to you, man. I'm getting on that train.
Good deal.
So that's kind of cool.
Good. So through therapisteyes.com, look for the Whole Family Life link, and you'll help me and Chris out. Back to the show. So, yeah, these stories. Like I said, Craig, I don't like to read a whole lot, but I thought, like I was saying before the break there, what people are experiencing, they've shared in my office. So this isn't anybody I know, but I just Googled in, gambling addiction stories, and there's things out there. So people share their stories to share strength, experience, and hope. Yeah, for all you 12-steppers out there, I get that from 12 Steps. Strength, experience, and hope is a big deal when you share it, and that's what you do when you share your story. So to give you an idea, this is just Mary's struggle with gambling is what it starts off. She started playing the slots as a way to relieve stress and have fun. Eventually, though, she found herself going to the casino 3 or 4 times a week. So you see progression, Craig. Things get more as you go along. Anyway, losing hundreds of dollars with each trip. Hundreds, that's plural, right? She wanted to stop, but by this time, Mary says she was on autopilot. On autopilot, Craig. That is not predictable. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm just running with it.
Before she knew it, she no longer had the ability to control, keyword, how much time she spent at the casino or how much money she was spending on her gambling habit. Once she ran out of money and took out cash advances on her credit cards. But that money went to machines as well, and she found herself unable to make any credit card payments. So you see, there's life impact, man, right? Let alone payments to make up for the cash advances. So she got back on her feet and things were looking up again. Again, people aren't crazy. They can go up and down, right, Craig? Her curiosity got the best of her, though, and led her back to the casinos just to see what would happen. Within 4 days, see, when you relapse, you can handle it for a little bit of time, but in a relatively short period of time, you're back in this, right? So within 4 days, she had overdrawn her bank account and causing the bank to close it out. Like what? After that, she began borrowing funds from the company to which she was president and chief executive. This is not a loser, right? This is not a low. She's a chief executive of her company, man. Okay? Since her eyes were the only ones who could see what went in and out of the account, she figured she could take some here and there, right? Dishonesty, mischievous lying or belittling or not belittling, but minimizing and dishonesty. Deceiving is the word I was looking for too, right? And pay the amounts back when she could, because you're always going to pay some back. You're an integrity-based person. Just lose control without anybody knowing. It didn't take her long for her to borrow more than she could repay, right? It just starts small, Craig. As addiction progresses, it starts small, gets a little bit bigger. It takes quite a while. Few years, 5, 6 years roll on, and before you know it, man, you are in deep with this stuff. You know, debting addiction is a part of this. I actually didn't even hear of Debtors Anonymous, rather, until somewhat recently. And that's a part of, you know, the whole realm of gambling and money addictions and stuff. And I think I've mentioned it before. I mean, people that get into debting have the same characteristics. I mean, what was the average credit card debt when we talked about that? Do you remember?
I can look it up again, but I don't remember.
Don't worry about it. It was several thousand or something. I mean, it was
25,000.
Oh my God, was it that high? That's crazy. Don't worry about it. It's totally not important. What's important is it's not $75,000 or $120,000. I mean, people that get into addictive type behavior, man, they are quadrupling times 5 or times 10, whatever figure that is. The point is, when people get on an addiction lifestyle, I mean, can you imagine drinking a case of beer in one day? I can't imagine that. Now, even when you're in college, you can kind of get your tolerance up and everything. But, dude, we're 40-something, right? How are we going to be 40, 50 years old and drink a case of beer? I just can't handle that much liquid. Yet, alcoholics will get... You see the growth of this, how it starts out small and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. We talked about online gaming. That's many hours in a 24-hour period. So you get the idea, right? It's like this story with, what's her name, Mary? I mean, can you imagine acting like this? This is what we're talking about with gambling addictions and debting addictions. Is there any way that you can imagine, Craig, being in, you know, kind of Mary's shoes and having that type of thing happen?
I can't imagine. No, I can't not even fathom that.
I mean, how are you going to run your bank account because of going to the casino to the point where the bank says, "Oh, yo, screw you, we're shutting you down"?
Man, I can't relate. I just cannot.
You know? Yeah.
No, I just can't.
And same thing with other substances.
I can't wrap my head around it, man.
So here's another one real quick, because again, stories I think say a lot. So listen to this, Craig. Dawn's stories from the same site. If you want to go check it out, I mean, it looked like a good resource spot to go to. This is Dawn's sports gambling addiction. We got sports going on. You're not gonna watch football tonight with me, are you, man? You're really not, dude.
No, I'm not.
Come on, man. Pittsburgh Steelers, the Carolina Panthers. I mean, it's probably just because it's game 4.
Oh, is it the Steelers Panthers?
Yeah,
okay.
Man.
I'm still not watching, but go Panthers.
Wrong. Dawn's sports gambling addiction personal stories about a broken marriage and tainted childhood memories. I'm not sure how far I'm going to go with this, but again, Just giving you an idea of what people really deal with. January 3rd, 1983 will forever be ingrained in Diane's mind as the night her husband, Don, started their family down a long road and winding path of deceit, disappointment, and disaster. That Monday night was the Minnesota Vikings. You know what sport that is, don't you?
Football.
Well done. Good. Just checking. The Monday night Minnesota Vikings were playing the Dallas Cowboys. Don had placed $1,500 bet on the game and lost. After that game, it wasn't long before Don's debts began to pile up and reach unmanageable levels as Don explained to his children that their video cassette player was broken and that's why the men were here to take it back. He was only telling the first of what may be many lies in order to conceal his gambling addiction from his children. They eventually found out anyway. Don's betting expanded to more than just football. Soon he had his own bookie. I bet every day of the year except for Monday and Wednesday before and after the baseball all-star game, the only 2 days of the year when there was no sports betting, says Don. When Don's bookie was the focus of a police raid, federal agents showed up at Diane and Don's home. This was a wake-up call for the family. It told them that Dad's sports gambling addiction was worse than they had imagined. Diane packed the kids and left the house. I'm going to stop there just because of time.
Dude, if I lost $1,500 in a football game, I'd have an addiction, alcoholism.
Right?
Seriously, man.
This is the kind of thing
crazy
that people get wrapped up into, and we're talking about, the think of it as a biological drive. It's an endorphin rush, man. You hear $1,500 lost, Craig, but they hear $1,500 bet pays out at $20,000. 20 large. Now, I just made that number up, but, that's what you're feeling, and they have won it. They've won it.
So is the endorphin rush, you mentioned, is that the addiction? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Doesn't have much to do with the casino or any of these other things.
What's the difference between that kind of addict and, say, these guys who jump in wingsuits and skydivers and extreme crazy sports athletes, Travis Pastrana, those
adrenaline junkies.
Yeah, adrenaline junkies. What's the difference, man?
I think that I could try to hearken an answer to that question, but I think I'm going to be true to the reality of it. I don't think we really know, and I certainly couldn't really intelligently answer it. That being said, I'll try to answer.
So okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's an area of the brain that we're tapping into that the limbic system and the release of dopamine and stuff gets hopped up in a different way with very specific things. And the adrenaline junkie kind of concept probably has a little bit of a correlation because we know that has a lot to do with like trauma. The trauma brain operates in much the same way with the amygdala and the need for that adrenaline rush. There's like biological overlap, I suppose, in some ways with how addiction is working in the brain. I'm kind of talking about an educated guess as an unknowledgeable biological neurosurgeon person that I am not, right?
Okay.
So there's a lot going on there, though, that we know with addiction is tied specifically, though, to substances attacking that part of the brain, gambling, gaming, dating, or gambling, sex. I've said it many times. Food.
So it's just a particular part of the brain that's
Yes.
getting hammered, not necessarily the chemical. So if I'm a gambler, I'm getting an endorphin rush. I would assume a sex addict does the same thing, right?
Yes.
But what about a heroin addict, man,
Yes.
or a crack
Same thing.
smoker?
Same
But is it endorphin rush that's hitting their brain, or is
Yes.
it so?
Yes.
It's not the heroin itself or the fentanyl or whatever.
That helps.
It's the endorphin or the. I'm not sure I'm
Yes.
understanding if there's a difference between.
It's very similar, the same with a drug and these 4 particular process addictions. Adrenaline junkies, like people that do all of that, I'm saying probably have an overlapping kind of correlation, but it seems to be very different because you're not going to get into skydiving and have an addiction to it. You just don't. It doesn't have the life impacts. It doesn't have the allure that gambling or sex clearly demonstrate in some of these characterizations that I'm kind of trying to portray.
And we talk about these different types of addictions, drugs and sex and video games and gambling. Yep. But and we talked about this particular topic, I think on the first show we did on substance abuse, but that was a long time ago.
It was.
So
episode 8.
Yeah, and so refresh my memory, man. I talked about a friend of mine who's got 25, 30 years clean now. But he was an addict, or is an addict, I guess. Always an addict, is that right?
Yeah. Once an addict, always an addict. I mean, it's a biological reality at birth. If that's true in any regard, then yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I won't get into what his drug was, but he was addicted to drugs. Went to the program, and he's doing
adult program.
Did really well. But dude, everything he didn't do anything half-assed, right? So he plays golf. He goes and gets a coach. Buys new golf clubs, joins the club. He's playing golf, every day. Then he moves from golf to he bought a computer, a Macintosh computer. Learned everything there is to know about a Macintosh, dude. I mean,
compulsive.
Oh golly, dude. Became a photographer, and I'm not talking about taking pictures on it. Nice camera equipment, doing wedding shoots. I mean, really studied photography, man, and became an excellent photographer.
Yeah.
So nothing this guy did was halfway. He was either
he was not a half-ass kind of guy. Yeah.
No. Yeah.
All or nothing. Yes.
I mean, how does that kind of mindset? Is that separate than the addictive mindset he had, or are they feeding off of each other? Or
I think it's separate, but they feed off each other.
Okay.
Right. Now, I feel like when I'm in my office and I'm working with people and I am doing diagnostic work, I'm trying to figure out what your diagnosis is, right? It's an excellent and very thoughtful question, Craig. Because I will see, and we know that there are multiple diagnoses that people can have that share a particular symptom. Now, I don't know really if your biological doctors would agree that that's the case for them as well. It's definitely the case for me. I suspect it is for them. Let's just take a headache. Well, you can have a headache, and what are the root causes, and what does that spider out of? You can have tension headaches that are blood pressure related, or you can have other things that create that same tension headache, right?
Who cares? Just take some pills, right?
Yeah, right? I think the body is kind of, what I'm trying to say is mental health is not any different than that, and the body kind of works in to, into play where different diagnoses will share symptoms. And if I think for a minute, I could probably come up with a good one as an example, but my brain's getting a little tired towards the end of the day here. But, having like a loss of interests, that's a depression diagnosis symptom. It's listed. It's one of the ones, right? But it's probably also a symptom in another diagnosis that has nothing to do with depression, maybe anxiety. And that's not a really good example. Forgive me for all you therapists out there. My brain's tired. But you get what I'm saying? It's like the body works together in all of that. So the adrenaline junkie has some compulsion. The addiction person has some compulsion. Your buddy that you're talking about, I suspect and can see where compulsion, as it relates to anxiety, driving him to be super detailed and super into something. I can come up with a fourth. My brain's not too tired, right? So compulsion is the thing, right? We have these three, and now the fourth one is people get very set on compulsions with Asperger's disorder, now called, autism mild, right? That's one symptom, but it's a part of 4 different things kind of going on. So there's something to that I think and feel we just don't fully understand. How's that for an answer?
Interesting.
Did I totally talk around it or get to it?
I think I'm clear. Yeah.
It's interesting the way things play out together. Listen to these 2 descriptions from one of our websites, Mayo Clinic and somebody else on the show notes that Craig you'll have on there, right? I don't check that. Do we good job? We got all these show notes that I put on here. You'll have on the thing. I'm not lying when I say that, right?
No.
So the causes they looked at from the Mayo Clinic and this other thing that I kind of meandered around with online. Listen to the descriptions of the causes, and I want to make a point from that. But I want you to comment, Craig, what you hear, in what they're trying to say on their website when they're just kind of putting stuff out there. Here's the description of what causes this, right? So, Psych Guides, that's the article. They say many factors can contribute to gambling addiction, including depression for money, the desire to experience thrills and highs, social status associated with being a successful gambler, and the entertaining atmosphere of the mainstream gambling scene. Unfortunately, once a gambling addict takes hold, breaking the cycle is difficult. Severe addictions can take hold while someone feels desperately financially and wants to make back what they have lost. Once the person finally wins, while they may end up collecting a massive amount of money from that win, it is rarely enough to cover what has already been lost. Most gamblers never even come close to breaking even. So all of that, Craig, is what they say is sort of talking about, well, what's the cause of addiction here, right? Here's the other person, Mayo Clinic, actually. They say, exactly what causes someone to gamble compulsively isn't well understood. Like many problems, compulsive gambling may result from a combination of biological, genetic, and environmental factors. That's what they said. Do you hear the two differences?
Yeah.
What do you hear in two different articles that were similarly made trying to break down the natural question, what causes this? I just gave you two. What do you hear in the two? What's different? What do you hear in that?
I don't know, man. You might have to read them again if you're going to ask me a question like that.
Well, the first one, exactly what causes someone to gamble compulsively isn't well understood. Like many problems, compulsivity gambling may result from a combination of biological, genetic, and environmental factors. That's one of the articles answer the question, what causes this?
Yeah, we don't know.
And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but listen to as it goes. Many factors can, this is the other one. Many factors can contribute to gambling addiction, including desperation for money, the desire to experience thrills and highs, the social status associated with being a successful gambler, the entertaining atmosphere of the mainstream gambling scene. Unfortunately, once a gambling addiction takes hold, breaking the cycle is difficult. Severe addictions can take hold when someone feels desperate financially and wants to make back what they have lost.
Well, I think the one said we don't know much about it, and the other one gave a bunch of theories as to what's going on there. I mean,
perfect, right?
Yeah.
Social theories that to me don't make a whole lot of jack sense, and are inconsequential in what I'm looking at if you have addictions or not. Really, I'm not looking at you interpret being a successful gambler or not. I'm not looking at you if you enjoy the atmosphere of mainstream gambling scene. I don't care about whether you have a desire to experience thrills and highs. It bothered me when I looked at these two articles. Now, they're saying more in the first one. Listen to the first one again, because that's what I subscribe to. If you listen, that's what I sound like, right? This is from the Mayo Clinic. What are the causes to gambling addiction, you ask? Well, they say exactly what causes someone to gamble compulsively isn't well understood. Like many problems, compulsive gambling may result from a combination of biological, genetic, and yes, they say environmental factors as well. What bothers me, Craig, about the two articles and the way that they're characterizing it is, this is not, when you're talking about somebody that's struggling with addiction, it's not a personality flaw. It's not like you've got poor moral character or you're somehow not doing things right in life, that you're a loser or something like that, or don't see the forest for the trees. No, your parents had sex. And your body was created in the unique way that it was created. And I do believe that you're set up for various genetic, biological processes that take the hell over a person's life. And when I hear things that characterize people struggling with addiction in ways that demean them as a person, it bothers me. It bothers me. Yeah, somebody who has addiction will steal your TV to get more of what they want. That's not the best moral choice, right? But look underneath that. What is going on? Where Mary, who was it? Dawn's taking $1,500 and going to the dang bookie with for one game. How does that get there? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's more than what this definition of causes says. Psych Guide's article. I do not agree. I don't agree with what they're saying. It doesn't make any sense to me. Now, by the way, the latter part of what they said does. I mean, they're hitting on some of the things that we know about, addiction, but it just, there's so much going on in our society that just hits people like Jim, who was on our show bravely and courageously to share what he shared with us, and people would say that he's just such a terrible person as a man, and he isn't. He's not. People are afflicted with something. God, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, I agree with you, man. I know people, a lot of people that have struggled with drugs. Man, I love those people, man. And they're good people. They just have this problem and they do bad things when they're in the crux of the addiction, man.
Right.
You
lose control of yourself in your life.
Yeah.
It takes over.
Yeah.
It takes over. Whether we're talking from the perspective particularly of gambling addiction or some other form, but it really takes over somebody's life.
Yeah, I know people that would give you the shirt off their back under the right circumstances who were addicted to drugs and who struggle with that, dude. And, you're right. They will steal your TV if you let them.
Yeah, they'll do it.
But if they were clean and sober and had the money, they'd buy you a TV. They'd give you theirs,
You're right.
Yeah.
Literally. That's like a literal.
I'm not making that up.
Because
I know people like that.
People in a recovery. I mean, there's some. You heard Jim and I talk about it. Well, we talked about it with Jim on episode 8. I mean, it is some of the most humble people that.
I told you the story about me being in that courthouse, man, and I counted 20 people, at least 20 people I know who have been affected directly by drug addiction.
So, what do you think? Let's end up with a nice little political issue.
A nice political issue.
You like to get political, don't you? You love getting political. I know you do.
I will admit that I have been paying more attention to politics lately.
That's funny. You have? I have been too, actually.
But there's nothing nice about it, in my opinion.
We could be nice. And political. Do we legalize gambling or not? What are your musings about the legality and the opinions that we might share? You might clear this with you, Craig, so I'm not going to put you on the spot with that. If you want, I'm going to share mine. I've had the foresight of being able to think about it a little bit so that the audience knows you have not, as always.
Right? That's one of those questions you have to wrestle with, right?
Yep.
Do you legalize marijuana? Do you legalize cocaine? Do you legalize drugs in general? Mushrooms. There's this big thing now about legalizing mushrooms.
Are they pushing that too now?
Colorado's decriminalized mushrooms.
That's right. I did see it. They decriminalized mushrooms.
I mean, if you're talking about, it's a big entertainment thing, right? I mean, I've been to casinos and it's fun to go in a casino and I've been in them before, and I'm not going to
drink for free.
I'm not going to get addicted, but you might. You might go in there and ruin your life. So I don't know the answer to that. Should you legalize it or not? I tend to be more libertarian in my political views. I think the government should just stay the hell out of people's lives. But I do believe that there are times when you have to make some decisions about how your society's going to go. So that's a good one, man. I don't know if gambling should be legal or not.
You did pretty good with that. Yeah, it's a lot there, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a lot there. My main thought as you look at it, because there are multiple ways to kind of go at handling those types of questions, but I thought it would be an interesting, fun thing to kind of end up our show on today. If you got opinions on it, share us with contact and. Through a therapist's eyes and let us know, but go ahead.
Most of the opposition to legalized gambling is based on religious beliefs, right?
Moral and religions,
Yeah,
maybe so.
Yeah, I think most of the fights I've seen against casinos have been led by religious groups.
That's interesting that
and,
you say.
You know, that's a whole other issue, man.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say. I don't think I realized that was the main. You say that's the main.
Just that's what comes
argument
to my mind.
against.
I could be dead wrong, but that's what comes to my mind.
Yeah, because I was thinking it's
about that.
trying to prevent society from the harmful effects of what goes on. See, here's my main thought. We get worried about such things as a society due to the severe effects on an individual. You know, I think that we're protecting to a certain extent the individual from harming themselves, really, right? So where it seems to the extent that they can't help themselves. I think over time we've seen, like, people get into this crazy nonsense and they can't help themselves. So we as a society are going to try to help them with the Sallys and the Dawns of the world, if you will. So question is, are we trying to help the individual from themselves? Well, this would indicate the idea of making it illegal being a good thing, right? Like, you know, I don't really need a casino to be happy, Craig, so whatever. But if I know it's freaking killing you, and you don't even know it, well, hell, let's just take it off the board. You know, I mean, that's part of the thought. However, if we're trying to mitigate the effects on society, well, that's kind of a whole different thing. So, you know, what are we doing by outlawing, you know, gambling? If we're trying to protect society, well, it might not make sense then because addiction only affects about 10 to 15% of our society. So the other 85 or 90%, like you and me, hey, I want to be able to go play poker. I mean, if we had poker downtown Charlotte, and we could sit down there and, you know, where they play chess? Yeah, they play chess down there. Hey, man, don't arrest me for putting $50 down here and playing a series of game of chess or poker in the city street.
Yeah.
I think that'd be great. I would have a blast.
Yeah. And, you know, there's underground gambling, too.
There's very underground.
There definitely is. I know people who engage in underground gambling, man. So, I mean, you can't eradicate it completely. So, do you make it legal and then enjoy the benefits of the money being spent in the casinos? And, you know, those are hard kind of questions to wrestle around with.
They really are. And, you know, I'm glad you brought that up because I hadn't brought that up. But you're right. What do you know about the underlying, what do you say, the underground gambling scenes and stuff? What do you really know about that?
I just know they exist.
You know much about them?
No, not a whole lot. I know some people who play poker underground, and there's some poker machines that I was aware of at one time that were illegal and paying out. And
let me tell you something. It's a big deal.
It really is.
For those of you that are living naively, even more so than I might be naive about some of these things, because I mean, I've had clients. I learned a lot from my clients, Craig.
Oh, I'm sure, man.
I tell you,
yeah, because that's patient client, right? I can tell you anything.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. And I mean, dude, so I'm not going to claim that I'm an expert on it by any measure, but dude, people that get into this stuff, man, there's a whole community of people out there that have a full ass network of, you know, that where the game is on, man. Matter of fact, you ever watch the movie Rounders?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Ed Norton and Matt Damon.
It was a great movie. Yeah. That's real. That's like, that stuff happens, man.
I knew a guy who made his living one time riding around the Southeast playing poker in underground tournaments.
Did you? Really?
Yeah, absolutely I did, yeah.
Bible Belt Southeast, man, really?
Yeah, man.
Come on now.
He's playing poker in dark places, man, coming out of winter.
Yeah, that's real.
That's how he made his living for a while.
That's crazy. That's the way he literally lived his life.
Yeah. I mean, for a while, you know.
Right.
He's not doing that now, but.
Is he in recovery?
No.
Ooh.
He was not addicted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well.
No, not addicted at all. He just played poker.
Yeah. That's a pretty involved thing.
He's pretty good at it.
It's a pretty involved thing. And I know all you out there, I like to watch World Series of Poker too, man. You know, what was the guy's name? Cash or Moneymaker?
Yeah,
Mr. Moneymaker, man. I'm not down in that at all. But I know there are people that do it kind of for quote unquote sport and what all. But dude, when you get into this like this level and on that level, I mean, there's a high percentage of a problem because that's a pretty.
Maybe some of them do. This person didn't. But what do you think about these guys who play like in the World Series of Poker? And
yes, right.
Poker on TV. Are they addicts or no?
I'm gonna say there's probably a high percentage.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I have nothing to
They're
base
just
on.
winning. They're just good. Is that?
Yeah, and listen, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean,
guess-
there are people out there that listen. I believe poker is as much a game of skill as it is chance by any measure. Now, you and I have no concept of the skill of it, but yeah, it is.
My friend that I'm talking about was good at just cards in general.
Yeah.
And I could play gin rummy with that guy, man.
Smoke you.
Yeah, and he'd get down to the last card or whatever, and he'd say, "Here's that 5 you've been looking for." And I'm like, "How do you know that, dude? How do you know that, man?" And he would just some of that stuff he could do would blow my mind.
Yeah, and that has nothing to do with addiction, really. But
no, I mean he totally wasn't addicted to it.
Right.
I know for an absolute fact he wasn't. He was just good at cards in general.
And isn't that the conundrum? So, what about Don here with gambling and Mary here with, the slots and stuff? What is the difference between, them who clearly seem to have a problem? Well, I mean, you think about
there's other things too. I mean, I can be in a relationship and be intimate with a lady and not be addicted to sex. I can go out and drink some beer, have some whiskey, smoke some cigars, and watch a football game. Yeah. And not be an alcoholic. I mean, so there's people who can play poker and go gamble. And
85 to 90% of our population does not have this issue.
Yeah, I had some family members, my great aunt and uncle. Actually, I had my aunt. I had two great aunts, who married two friends, and so they were all hanging out together.
Right.
And the men have passed away now, and actually one of my aunts is gone too. But they used to go to Atlantic City a couple times a year.
Yeah.
And spend a weekend in Atlantic City playing machines and
take $1,000 and have fun, right?
Then they come home and that was the end of it.
Yeah.
So not everybody that's gambling is addicted. Well, but an interesting thing you said a minute ago is some of those poker players could be addicted,
right?
But they're winning. So when I think of a gambling addict, I think of somebody who's lost everything. They're homeless, they don't have anything left.
Right.
But I guess you could be an addict and be winning, right? Yeah. And living high on the horse.
Kind of, probably, yeah. I mean, again, if you can mix the skill, with the thrill and the rush and whatnot, and I would also submit to you, I would wonder. I mean, I'm going to show my ignorance with some of that, and maybe it's an ignorant statement that I made about, World Series folks that are in that tournament. I mean, but there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people that sign up for the World Series of Poker, right? I mean, it starts out with like 10,000 people or however many, right? I mean, it's a crap ton of people.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like you say, it's a skill game.
Right.
It is a skill game. So, a lot of those guys at the end are always there.
Right, yeah. I mean, there's something to that.
That guy's name,
so those guys,
African-American kid who's really good. They say he's the Tiger Woods of poker.
Oh, I don't know.
What's his name?
I have no idea. But he's
always in it.
My point to you would be, those guys on the final table that I'm watching on ESPN and the TV, I mean, that might be a totally different story. But the other 10,000 people that started that tournament, none of them won much of anything.
Yeah.
They paid a lot to be in that tournament.
Yeah.
A lot of those people, or percentage of people, probably have a higher percentage than 10%. That's probably a higher percentage.
Yeah.
20, 40%. I don't know, 60%. Who knows? But it's not going to be like you take the city of Charlotte that we live close to and take that population. It's only going to be about 10, 15%. It's not going to be 60% of people in Charlotte have addiction.
Yeah.
It's 60% of people in WASP. Did I say that right? WASP? World Series of Poker.
Yeah, close enough, yeah.
They might have a high percentage like that. So, I don't know. That makes sense. But excellent conversation, Craig. Thank you for having it with me and bringing light to the seriousness of something that I think is a little bit misunderstood, and at a time when the sports industry is popping up on the radar, man. We're getting ready to throw down on my Mountaineers and my Steelers.
So you want to bet on who's going to win the game tonight?
It's preseason game 4. I got nothing for you, man.
$5, man.
I'll put 5 on it. You shake though. It's
$5, man.
It's shake. You done?
I'm not betting
Put
on
it
a
out
football
here.
game, dude.
Come on, man. I thought he was actually going to do it, guys.
So what? Maybe if I'll take the Steelers, you can have the Panthers.
No. Ready to take us out of here, man?
Will let me down and piss me off in the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, folks. Thank you for listening, man. We really appreciate you guys. Our download numbers, they continue to go up, man, and it's just awesome. that we're bringing people on, and obviously
We need you to tell your friends, though.
tell your friends. Word of mouth is the best way to sell anything.
Seriously, 5 stars and comments on the rankings. Comments make a big deal.
Yes,
they really make a big deal.
5-star reviews and comments help people to find us. So if somebody's searching for mental health on iTunes or mental health podcasts or addiction podcasts or whatever, those 5 stars help us get found. DoItTherapistEyes.com is our website, and you can find links to our Facebook and Instagram on there. We've got individual entries for each show, so you can listen right there on the website, or you can go to your favorite podcast platform and download. We're also putting out some shorter episodes every Monday. We're really just cutting out some content from previous shows we've recorded.
I love those, Craig. Good idea.
And we're trying to pull things out that you can take and use. They're usable segments, right? Or they answer questions, or they provide some kind of useful information that we can put into a 10, 15-minute segment that somebody can listen to. What am I leaving out, man?
I'll tell you where we're going next when you're done.
I think I'm done. Go ahead.
I have no idea.
No idea again.
I have been so busy, man. I seriously have reached a little bit of critical mass on some levels, so I'll figure it out. We'll get it. I do have some of the groups that we've talked about, exercise and Aaron, following up on episode 3. I mean, so there's definitely some things. It's just been having a hard time getting people organized. I think I tried to do that towards the middle of the end of summer, and that was probably the wrong time to organize some things. So I don't know is the answer to that question.
Cool. We'll all be surprised as we were this week.
Have a great week, guys.